Welcome to another Platinum Greatwyrm episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, where you never know what you're going to get. Welcome to a special episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, where I, Adam, am sitting down again with one of our Patreon subscribers, Gerald, who is one of our patrons of Platinum Greatwyrm tier. And that means that he's able to sit down and record an episode of his choice with us. And he decided that today we're going to be building encounters for his Tier 3 party to stumble upon in his homebrew version of the Ethereal Plane. But before we get into the encounters themselves, let's talk a little bit about the Ethereal Plane, and let's talk about the homebrew that Gerald has set up for us. So first of all, Gerald, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's great timing. My game has been on hiatus for a couple of weeks because we all hurt ourselves and had life happen. So.
Oh my God. just a series of calamities?
Yeah. I mean, well, I hurt myself putting mugs away. So.
How big were the mugs?
The regular size mugs. Eventually you get old, and turning in the wrong direction can apparently bruise the ligaments in your knee. Who knew?
Oh God, knee injuries are the worst. Yeah, no thank you. Knee and back are the ones that scare me the most, I think.
Yeah, it was not a great time. It was just before I was supposed to run a half marathon, so that was an exciting time to figure out if I was broken or just mostly hobbled.
Good Lord. And I'm assuming it's mostly hobbled?
It was mostly hobbled, yeah. No bones were involved in the issue. I didn't tear anything, so it did recover eventually.
That's
I can walk around like a regular human now.
That's fun. So when I said, how are you? And you said, fine. That's what you meant is in full recovery.
Yeah, I guess fine now was the...
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Let's talk for a second about your homebrew. We've talked about it before on some of the episodes we've recorded in the past, but I think it's time for a refresher and for anyone that hasn't listened to those to kind of get up to speed here. So what details do the listeners need to know about your homebrew setting so we have some context?
Sure. So in the homebrew world that I run, there are kind of three main planes that we operate from. There's the prime material where the characters exist in their day-to-day lives. And then there is, kind of for ease of understanding, kind of a Fey and a Shadowfell analog that serve as mirror plane. Kind of the planar tissue between those for us is the ethereal. And then resting on the outside of that is the astral, right? So in times long before the game takes place, souls would leave the mirror planes and exit out into the astral from the ethereal. There was an event in the history of the world about 2,000 years ago where a group of mages kind of secluded the planar system to keep souls in and to help power their magics. What that means in practical terms now is that the planes themselves kind of keep a hold of the souls and tug and vie for kind of the supremacy over regions within the plane system. So the story takes place in an area that's pretty well controlled by dragons, and the struggle is between kind of the dragons that reside in that Fey analog plane and the ones that reside within the Shadowfell analog plane. Now that we're in third tier, and they have an access point in front of them to get to the ethereal to find their way to their main opponent, which is the kind of the leader of the dragons in the Shadowfell analog. Their path will take them through the ethereal. So it's time to start to think about what the encounters there would look like.
Yeah. But your ethereal plane is a little bit different than the one presented in the DMG, right?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. What makes it different?
For the most part, it's a roadway for the souls more than kind of a freestanding space.
And what happens if you go off the road?
Well, the ethereal as it exists now has probably four groups of primary residents, right? There are the temporary inhabitants of the plane that are from those analog planes trying to harvest souls, either that have already been committed to those planes through agreements with the powerful entities that control them, or that are just kind of lost and stuck in the ethereal for them to gather and pull under their sway. The other kind are those drifting souls, right? And the longer they're there, the kind of more sentience that they can assert and the more powerful that they can become. So you've got some powerful souls that are just kind of floating around in the ethereal. And then you have the denizens that are native to that ethereal plane, which in my mind are primarily feeding upon the souls that are stuck there.
Sorry, I might have missed something. You said there were 4 different groups. There's the temporary inhabitants from the other planes that are there to harvest souls, the lost souls, the native denizens, the civilians of the ethereal plane itself. What's the 4th group?
Those would be our wayward adventurers.
Gotcha. Sorry, I'm taking notes right now so that I don't lose it. So speaking of wayward adventurers, how big is your party and what's the makeup?
So the party as it exists now is 6. We've got an artificer, we have a sorcerer, we've got a monk, a fighter, a ranger, and a bard.
Is there anything specifically like like the artificer is an armorer and it always comes up, or the sorcerers and Aarakocra, and so we have flying to deal with? Like, what are the details tactically that we're going to need for each one of these characters if we're building encounters?
They're very mobile. The sorcerer has a flying broom, and the monk has an artifact that gives them the access to the fly spell, ostensibly once a day. The artificer is very tactical. He does a good job of putting his spells to use to control the battlefield. Doesn't do a lot of DPS, but is very good at kind of managing the environment for the other players.
What do we have for the fighter, ranger, and bard?
The fighter is pretty stock standard.
Like champion fighter?
It is the samurai build from one of the supplements. I don't remember which one it came. Was it in Tasha's?
Yeah. The samurai's been around for a while. That's a great subclass.
Yeah. It's it's got some pretty cool abilities. Starting to see the extra tiers of that now.
Yeah.
The rangers from Fizbin's Treasury of Dragons, the Draconic Ranger.
What is that? The Drake Warden, I think.
Drake Warden, yeah. See, the monk is open hand.
Does the Drake Warden come with a Drake?
Yes.
And is the Drake like a beefed up version that's going to survive combats, or is this something that's going to get killed every 3rd fight?
Every 3rd fight sounds about right. He does a really good job of maximizing his damage, which has a tendency to draw the attention of the enemies. I think my ranger is the one that hits the hardest in the early stages of a fight, so it has a tendency to draw some ire. All those dice bonuses they get. Yeah.
What about the bard, who's going to be kind of the wild card here?
It's primarily support. Again, he tends to stay out of it, but it does a good job of messing with the enemies and buffing the party. Our primary damage dealers are the sorcerer, the monk, and the ranger, and the fighter with sentinel does a pretty good job of locking people in place.
Oh, fucking sentinel! God.
I mean, I just use multiple enemies.
Yeah. I DM'd Terry back there. He was playing a champion fighter with both mobile and sentinel. Oh, my God, he just ran that battlefield. So.
Yeah, he does a good job of locking between that and the artificer's kind of slow and confusion spells. They do a good job of messing with the enemies.
So you tend to have larger encounters with more people, right? More enemies.
Yeah, because we can kind of run them quickly with the 2 of us. The larger encounters, we tend to do them. I mean, it depends, right? So if you think you're looking for multiple encounters in a day, typically we'll have a few simple encounters. You sprinkle in some social, sprinkle in some role play, sprinkle in a couple of simple combat encounters. Some of those social encounters end up being combat encounters.
Yeah, that tends to be the way of it.
Yeah. And then our showpiece fights for kind of the set are the ones that we usually do kind of tiered combats. So, we'll lead in with either waves or we'll have kind of a main enemy or set of enemies with a lot of support creatures. It's nice because this campaign happens at scale, so you don't have a lot of like onesie twosie groups.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked in the past about your mass combat and whatnot. I assume that you like to throw lots of enemies at the players, which is nice because it means that we're not tied to a CR, right?
Right.
When you and then you have to balance. Because would you say your party's more powerful than the average D&D party as far as tactics and effectiveness on a battlefield?
Yeah, they certainly have the capacity for it. I think they do a pretty good job of kind of keeping the characters alive in the fight as well. So there are times where that breaks along kind of the character incentives, but for the most part, when they're in battle, they do better than average job of targeting and controlling the fights. To the point where I think anytime we want a battle to feel challenging, it essentially has to be deadly. If we want it to feel deadly, usually the odds should be, from a CR standpoint, nigh impossible.
Yeah. I have one last. Well, I have three last questions for you, but it's going to be a similar theme here. Now I know you don't like calling out the player specifically, but who is the one that stays out of the spotlight in social encounters the most?
That's a good question. I think that for something like I expect in the Ethereal, it's probably going to be the Sorcerer.
All right. And who is the last one to engage in an exploration encounter? You can see the theme I'm going with here, right?
Yeah.
Did you say fighter?
The fighter, yeah.
All right. And who is the one that is the least likely to pop off and start a combat encounter?
The bard.
Really? That is the opposite of every other table.
Yeah, there was actually, they had a big encounter in an enemy camp where he didn't participate in the fight at all. He used the opportunity of the fight to break into the command tent and look around and gather intel.
I mean, how very roguey of him.
I know.
Yeah.
he just went right by him. It almost got the fighter killed, but
So
sacrifices need to be made.
Right. Before we get into, sorry, what CR are we aiming for? You told me tier 3 before we hit record on this, but like, we're talking early tier 3, right? Like CR 11, 12?
Yeah, that's what I would think. They're just pushing into tier 3 now. I expect them to be a level or two into it when they first jump in here.
So if we hit them with the CR 13 creature or CR 9 creature with minions, that's still kind of the range we're in.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So let me talk about the Ethereal Plane for a second, because we're going to try to make all of the encounters that we're going to go over today kind of stick with the general theme of being in the Ethereal Plane, so that it's not just another random encounter. Or, hey, remember the time we fought the knight? Was that on a grassy field or in a castle, or where was that? Like, some of the best ways to make something memorable is to tie it to the setting, right? So I'm going to get into the Ethereal Plane because there are some interesting bits and pieces that we find. And I feel like the latest Dungeon Master's Guide did a pretty good job of outlining it generically, right? So we're getting some general rules here because I was very disappointed with the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide and what they offered. We get a little bit more here. We understand that we're dealing with the transitive planes, right? So the Ethereal Plane and the Astral Plane are considered to be the transitive planes. However, in your world, correct me if I'm wrong, the Astral Plane is the destination and the Ethereal Plane is the actual transition plane, right?
That's right.
Okay. So both of these are considered to be like boundless realms that provide passage between other planes of existence. That's right out of the DMG. Then you get a lot of information about portals, the river Styx, the river Oceanus, the Infinite Staircase, and Yggdrasil, the World Tree, which all bypass the transitive planes. Is there any way for them to be like going another route, or are you forcing them through the Ethereal Plane?
So there is one other way for them to travel. In the in the area that they're currently located in. It's an area that they will end up having access to, but because it is currently sealed up, they're going to have to engage with the ethereal in the short term.
Okay. I always have to double check whenever it comes to any like planar nonsense, because you never know when a player's just gonna pick up plane shift and then you're screwed. You've got an entire session that you're just gonna bypass, right? So
no wizards.
no wizards. Yay. So the entry for the ethereal plane in the DMG gives us a handful of details. First of all, it's essentially infinite. And that's more of a concept because time and space just don't really matter here, more than just like it is a massive plane. It is a massive plane that goes forever, but it's just because the laws of physics are a little fucky, right? It's always misty or fog bound, and vision within the border ethereal is limited to 60 feet. So there are two different kinds of the ethereal plane. There's the border ethereal, and then there's the deep ethereal. The border ethereal overlaps with the material plane, Feywild, Shadowfell, and all of the inner elemental planes. And sorry, I'm going to pause for a sec. I almost lost you on the internet. Are we back?
You started to cut out a little bit too, so.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so let me go over that last little bit again, because honestly, it's one of the most important pieces. So the border ethereal is overlapping sections with the material plane, Feywild, Shadowfell, and all of the inner elemental planes. And each one of these has a corresponding version of every location of these planes within the ethereal plane, but the ethereal plane has more space than just this. It has more locations, there's more dead space in between them. And all of these corresponding versions, they might not necessarily be ordered in the same way that they would be on the material plane, right? So the border ethereal just is a little bit fucky like that. All of the vision in these places is limited to 60 feet, like I said. In other spaces, the fog is called the deep, and you only get half that visibility, so 30 feet. So it's very difficult to see things long range. There are magical ways to get to and from the ethereal plane, like the spell plane shift, like I mentioned before, but you got to be careful because some of these magical means might actually spit you out into a random place. And it actually gives a little warning about that, although no specific details on how that would work. Those in the material plane cannot see into the ethereal plane, even though they overlap kind of on top of each other. Really, the best way that, like the best pop culture version that I can always think of is Frodo putting on the ring and kind of seeing what the world looks like in the shadow realm, like where you can see the ring wraiths in their like true form and whatnot. It's kind of like that, where there's one reality kind of sitting on top of another, right? And you can't see into the ethereal plane, but anyone in the ethereal plane can see into the material plane, but only 30 feet of it. So to say all this again, if you are in the ethereal plane, you can see in a 30-foot radius what's going on in the material plane. And then you can see, if you're in the border ethereal, you can see another 30 feet beyond that in the ethereal plane. And then beyond that is just fog and mist, so you can't see. But if you're looking into the material plane, light, concealment, and cover still apply. So there might be some parts of it that you can't see. It's actually kind of fucking complicated. And it's going to take a DM a little moment to kind of process what the visibility is when it comes to interacting. Also, seeing into the material plane is blurry and a little difficult, like colors blur and some exact details might be difficult to discern. So while it is great for moving undetected, for scouting, and even for spying, the limited visibility makes it so that you have to be just essentially on top of what you're looking at, what you're spying on, or the area that you're trying to comprehend. Also, gravity is a suggestion, not a rule, and people can just kind of go wherever they want in 3 dimensions. They just do it. This is one of those things that I absolutely fucking hate about planar travel sometimes, is you just can fly every once in a while. It drives me a little nuts, but I like to think of it more of like when you walk into a room, the items on the desk are like kind of floating a few inches above the desk and like maybe rotating a little bit. It's a little strange. While you can like lift off and fly, I feel like just gravity is very limited. You will eventually come back down. That's how I would run it myself, but that's not the actual rules as written. It just keeps my job as a DM a little easier. Moving on to the deep ethereal, travel is difficult and time and distance are meaningless. You're going to get lost. That is one of the things. If you get into the deep fog, you can kind of stumble in one direction, but it could take up to 4 days or so to get from one curtain to another curtain, or to find part of the border ethereal. And I say curtains because, yes, there are weird curtains seemingly randomly placed all over in the foggy, and I want to say 3D space. Some of these curtains, because people can just like fly around, they might be up in the sky somewhere, right? Like they're just going to be all over. They're not super common. Like I say, it might take you days to find one that you kind of know where you're going as well. So the idea here is that you can pass through these curtains to access different points in the material planes. So Feywild, Shadowfell, Elemental planes, or the Prime Material plane, right? The color is going to lead to a specific plane. Like opalescent always leads to the Feywild. Green always goes to the plane of water. Maroon for the para-elemental plane of magma. Turquoise for the material plane. Shit like that. There's a table in the DMG, and it's going to outline all of this. And you actually can roll on its a D12 table to find out what kind of curtain they run across. But if you touch a curtain, the temperature and texture is going to give you an idea of the exact location beyond it. So you may get to the material plane, it's a turquoise curtain, but it is kind of gritty and it's very, very hot. Oh, this will lead to a desert, right? There are other details in the DMG, like the ether cyclones that can displace travelers. The fact that movement during combat operates like normal, no matter the time and space weirdness, and details about the Radiant Citadel. I'm not certain that any of those matter for this episode, so I'm just going to move on. The one thing that I found that was implied strongly, though, was that people often get lost in the ethereal plane, but you likely won't be lost forever. There are ways out all over the place. It's not going to be the way you want, right? It's going to spit you out somewhere random. If you're starving to death, just find the nearest curtain. It'll take you a day or two at most, maybe, and you'll be able to get somewhere on some plane to be able to get out of this fog-bound space. So, how much of the DMG's descriptions are still accurate in your homebrew?
I think a decent amount. The fog and the mist is an element that will carry over. The near and the deep is it, kind of elements of that for sure are going to be a part of it. For us, the overlap isn't in total, right? But insofar as there are areas that have gaps or access points to the ethereal, the region around them will be that kind of near, basically a pathway to the deep that lets you navigate between the planes. The rest of it, with being able to access through the curtains. I mean, curtains are as good a method as any, I guess, to move from one portal area to the next. And it'll just be limited for us to those 4 planar options, right?
Yeah.
With most of the curtains that would go to the astral being sealed at this point.
Yeah, that makes sense. The curtains is such a weird idea, but I like it. I really like the idea of there just being freestanding doors, just that take you places that you can walk around the door in 360 degrees, and it looks like a regular door is just standing in the middle of nowhere. But you open it up and pass through it.
I mean, I like that better than curtains.
Yeah, right.
Or just like stairways.
Yeah. And by the time that you get to the top of the stairway, you're gone, right?
Yeah.
Like these things are creepy things that have like real world myth to them as well. The curtains is a neat take on that, but I would probably change it to doors, or like I like stairways as well. Maybe even like hatches in the ground, right? Something that it looks out of place, but is some sort of like transition threshold, right?
Yeah.
So, I also want to kind of point out the idea that this says like space and time act strangely here, but it's not like the Feywild, where the Feywild just like fucks you on time. Every once in a while, just like, oh, I hung out here and I went westward. I ended up 100 years in the past. Fuck me, right? Like it can just, like, the Feywild is strange about that. In the ethereal plane, if you need to go from, like, that the castle you need to get to is 10 miles away, but there's a massive chasm to get there, going through the ethereal plane will get you there in a more direct route than having to take, some 12-day, other scenic route. But going through the ethereal plane, if it was a straight line, should only take a day. But when you go through it, you end up taking I don't know, 94 hours, something like that. That time just passes. Like, it's not like there's a time dilation or a weirdness with it. The time you spend in the ethereal plane is the time you spend there. It's not it's not going to fuck with you the way that the Feywild fucks with time. There's no time travel or time dilation or stretching or thinning of time. It just, you will get lost because nothing makes sense here. Is that still true in your homebrew as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the distances on the planes themselves, like the distance in the material, has very little bearing over how long or how far you have to move to get to the space inside of the ethereal.
Yeah. So if we jump over into Tashes for a moment, we get a bunch of weird supernatural regions. And because your homebrew ethereal plane is tied to the concept of death and souls moving from one zone to another, but also some kind of like mirrored areas, and there's like denizens that live here and stuff. I feel like your ethereal plane is more populated than the bog standard one from D&D. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I think that that's fair.
Are the fogs as thick?
I don't think it's like walking through a town, but it's maybe like walking through a nature path where every once in a while you're gonna see somebody sharing the space with you.
Yeah, whereas the rules as written feels very lonely, right?
Yeah.
So I went into Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and I started poking around at the back half of the book, and there's a bunch of supernatural regions in there, and I wanted to kind of just go through them really quickly with you and see if any of these might be a region or an area or an effect for a small part or a large part of your ethereal plane to make it feel a little bit more unique and different. So let's jump through these really quickly and see if there's something that you would like to add on to a portion of your ethereal plane, because I love these, and I like to use them all the time in my own homebrew, some of them anyway, and I thought that it might be a little bit thematic as well. So the first one, and we did a whole episode on these, oh god, a few years ago now, but I really love them. The first one is the Blessed Radiance, and the idea here is that the grace of the upper planes touches this region, and there are all of these Blessed Radiance effects. It's a D100 table, and like one of the things is one character in the region hears whispers from celestial beings or refrains from celestial choirs. The character can ask those voices one question as if using a commune spell. Is that the kind of connection that we're going to have to the afterlife, or is it not tied to celestials?
Well, it's not tied directly to celestials here. The creatures that kind of oversee the region we're talking about is it's dragons on both sides, right?
Yeah.
The old gods that held sway have long been locked out. There are regions on the material plane that are influenced by powerful celestials that are also kind of trapped or perpetuated inside the system, but they won't talk to my party here and now.
Okay.
But it could be on a similar vein, the something that works in this way, but is the body of the body of dragons, right? Got a dragon of light.
Yeah,
they have domains that they occupy.
Yeah, some of the stuff here is, here's another one. An angelic voice rings throughout the region. Each creature there must succeed on a DC 15 wisdom saving throw or perform the grovel option of the command spell. You could change that to draconic, and it would make equal amounts of sense, right? So
yeah, easily. I think that this is a cool.
Do you have access to Tasha's?
Yeah, I just opened it. I just got to the Blessed Radiant section.
Yeah, some of these are really good. Some of them aren't going to work perfectly because it is very much like Divine Favor spell, right? Or the Hallow spell are listed in these options, but a lot of them could be cool if you're not randomly rolling to say, hey, this is going to be a random encounter or an effect when you're in this area or something, right? One character in the region is suffused with celestial power. For 1 minute, the character's melee attacks deal an extra 2d6 radiant damage. Well, you make that whatever the dragon's breath weapon is, right? And there you go. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
The next section, just moving on because I've got a few of these, is a haunted region. So haunted environs include homes burdened by wicked deeds and sites of mass killings and locations where individuals died while experiencing powerful fear, sorrow, or hatred. This is
Ooh.
also where I'm going to bring Sorrowsworn into this, if just because I fucking love them, and you're at about the right tier to run into groups of Sorrowsworn. But there's again all of these haunted effects, and it says consider rolling on the haunted effects table when the following circumstances occur in the region. Right, the frightened condition gets triggered, or multiple creatures are unable to see. If a creature is alone, or it becomes midnight, or another ominous hour arrives. Right, so if you run into a ghost, like maybe it's a haunted effect. And there are some things in here, like if you're walking through a section of, I'm thinking the ethereal plane, and it's like an empty town, then you might run into like a random building in this region gains the benefits from the guards and wards spell, right? So you can't get into it, and you can see it glowing, and like, oh, that one's fucking weird, and we can't go in. What's that about? Or one random creature's shadow acts independently for the next 24 hours. The shadow acts out of sync with the owner, perhaps dramatically choking or trying to murder another shadow. Like just weird little things like that. That feels very ethereal plane to me, but I always tie the ethereal to like shadow realms as well. So I don't know if any of this might be inspiring to you.
So very much, yes. Yeah.
I'd go through this whole long list. It's a D100 table, but I think there's only like, I don't know, 19, 20 different options on it. But it's worth looking at. The other one, or the next one rather, is Infested. And this is just, you're going to have a bunch of bugs. I don't know. I just thought bugs would be neat to throw in there if you have some sort of shadow swarm of some kind. So, like, it doesn't get much deeper than that. It's just like, if there are lots of bugs in this area, if it is infested, what would that look like? And if when you're dealing with like an overlap, like an overlay of one area to another, having a bunch of phase spiders, for example, that have moved into a region and have taken over the ethereal side, but not the other side, but they'll like phase in to hunt and then phase out back home again. Right, you'd end up in an infested area, so that might be a cool thing to run into. And again, there's D100 tables on all of this. The next one, which I thought might be even more on point, is this psychic resonance. In an area of psychic resonance, magic imposes strange effects on creatures and objects. These manifestations come from strong emotions combined with magic use or from the presence of psionic creatures. But you could have that be triggered by important things like happening in the material plane, right? And so there's all of this like just weird like psychic nonsense that is going on here. Like lurking fears become nightmares. Any creature that finishes a short or long rest in the region has to succeed on a DC 10 wisdom save or gain no benefit from finishing the rest. Or one random creature in the region gains the ability to cast telekinesis once over the next 24 hours, requiring no components, right? Just like weird little things that might be echoes of what's going on the material plane. I thought that might be a neat thing, but you'd probably have to tie that into story more than just randomly coming across it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there are definitely opportunities to do that, especially with the crossings they're going to have to use.
Yeah. And the other one, I don't know if this is going to be true, but the next one is Unraveling Magic. I just like throwing this into just weird shit sometimes in my campaign. But Unraveling Magic is like, this is what happens when the source of magic is damaged or corrupted in the region. Magic is just unpredictable and strange things happen. Is that, I don't know, does that apply to your ethereal plane at all?
Probably close to where it would typically intersect with the astral, right? In the areas where those crossings have been kind of blocked or voided, you probably have some weird shit happening inside of the ethereal.
Okay, so stuff like, I'm just looking at the options here. All fire in the region freezes into ice that gives off a blue light equal to the illumination it normally provides. And it gives extreme cold instead of extreme heat. And that would be like if you block off the curtain or a door to the plane of fire. Maybe everything around here is frozen, like fire is just frozen. Or something like simpler martial weapons in the region that are non-magical now crackle with power. For 1 hour, they become magical weapons that grant a +1 bonus attack or +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with the item. Just little weird things like that. But I would probably pick a handful of these. It's funny, like reverse gravity is actually one of the things that's listed here, and I might have a section that's like that depending on what the overlap is. The other thing that I want to point out is they list a bunch of different eldritch storms in the next section of magical phenomena in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. The Eldritch Storms listed, I don't think are accurate. Like they're not necessarily going to be things that speak to your specific homebrew setting. However, seeing the kinds of things that they're coming up with might inspire you to have some sort of like fog storm or some sort of rain that happens with a magical effect. Shit like that, right? You might be able to find a couple of really interesting storms as well, to homebrew to kind of put in the world. If it's an afterlife thing, something like it rains bones for a while. Just like, I don't know, I'm spitballing here. That was the first thing that came into my mind, but it could just be suddenly everything becomes very, very, very cold, and all of the mist starts to crystallize in the air, but it crystallizes in such a way that you can't pass through it. It becomes like just thick, dense ice, and you are like in the area that you're in, where you have 60 feet of vision. Beyond the 60 feet, everything just freezes, and you have to wait that out for a little while. You're stuck in this little zone, and then like I don't know what would happen in that zone. A creature shows up, or you're stuck with an NPC or something, right? Just weirdness happening. I might play with that, but I don't know. That's going to be if I'm going to spend a bunch of sessions in the Ethereal Plane. If I'm just going through in like 1 or 2 sessions, I probably wouldn't fuck around with that too much. But the last one that I want to point out from Tasha's is the emotional echoes. It says, occasionally a place becomes infused with the powerful emotions of those who once dwelt, worked, celebrated, or suffered there. Areas with emotional echoes are typically associated with one common emotion, such as joy or sorrow. Such an area might be as small as a room in a house or as large as a forest. And it gives a bunch of different options here. The idea is that you're essentially targeted by a suggestion spell. If you feel doubt, this like appears around cliffs or deserts and makes creatures hesitate, mistrusting their ability to climb or escape their current difficulties. Joy appears in glens or flowering fields, inspiring creatures to dance, relax, and sing. They've got a bunch: boldness, doubt, fear, hatred, inspiration, joy, love, and sorrow. So there's a lot in here. Some of this feels more Feywild or more Shadowfell, but an emotional echo through the Ethereal Plane might be cool. It's going to be really hard to get your players to commit to that unless they're really all about the role playing. So I might target NPCs to kind of give the idea that these fairly stoic dwarves that you've been traveling with for a little while are suddenly overcome with love and inspiration, and or this cheery band of minstrels that you're traveling with are now full of fear or hatred or doubt, right? So something like that, just to kind of give that idea that the Ethereal Plane is mirroring what's happening on the material plane.
Do like that.
So I didn't really find anything else that jumped out to me in Tasha's, although there is definitely more there. Like the magic mushrooms mimic colonies. There's what happens in a supernatural region that's touched by the far realms. There's one section I kind of looked at for a second was the mirror zone, and that's where planar and magical energies converge and create a place of reflections. And they've got a whole bunch of different like stuff like hallucinatory terrain. One character in the region gains the benefit of the mirror image spell. The images created sometimes move or speak of their own volition. The picture there is of a reflection of a halfling coming out of a mirror, like with hostility, and the real halfling is taken aback by it. Like there's some neat stuff going on. I don't know if you wanted to be that literal with it, or if that's going to be just a really strange like side quest. I feel like that kind of shit's going to eat up half a session if you're not careful.
Yeah, I mean that's one where it becomes its own thing for a day.
Yeah,
it is a cool idea to kind of keep on the shelf for it. It really speaks to where they're going.
Yeah, and I feel like when half of the people cancel, you're like, all right, I got a side thing we can do, right? Let's stumble into a little village and we'll do this for a day. I feel the same way about the mimic colonies, right? So
yeah, I mean, I do love the mimic colonies.
Oh, I fucking love them. I actually did one before Tasha's came out, and when I saw it show up here, I was like, yeah. So, The last thing I want to go over is kind of the stuff that's available on D&D Beyond. And before I get into the partnered content, I want to say that in 2022, in preparation for the book Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, Michael J. Carr, spelled Karr, published a little article on D&D Beyond called "What is the Ethereal Plane? Get Lost in This Realm of Swirling Mists." It essentially outlines everything I've already discussed from the DMG, but it includes some suggestions about monsters you might find there. And I've already talked about phase spiders, night hags, and ghosts. Night hags are ones that are there. And I found a lot of stuff when I was just like Googling and looking on Reddit and stuff in preparation of the episode. People kept putting ghouls in the ethereal plane, which doesn't really sit perfectly, but I don't mind that. It also lists some important spells as well in the article. Etherealness gets you into the border ethereal, but not the deep ethereal. Plane shift and gate and teleportation circle can get you into the deep ethereal, although I don't see why it couldn't get you into the border ethereal if you wanted to use it that way. True seeing and see invisibility will let you see creatures when you are in the material plane and they are in the ethereal plane. You'll be able to see them. Hallow, Forbiddance, and Wall of Force can keep creatures from crossing into the material plane. And those are all 4th to 6th level spells, so your guys should have access to these. And and it's important to note that things, unless you're homebrewing or something very specific, the general rule is if you're in the ethereal plane, you can see, but you cannot interact with the material plane. You have to shift into the material plane to do that. So it's just what you can witness. Have you thought about that opportunity of having your players see something that they cannot interact with on the material plane?
No, I have not played much with that idea, but I mean, it definitely works as well in the mechanics of the homebrew I have as it does in the standard rule set. So
well, yeah, I kind of tuck that away as almost like a random encounter. Maybe you see some injustice that they can't fix, right, or something. If they make strong enough, let's say charisma checks, then maybe they're able to influence inanimate objects, but they won't be able to interact with creatures themselves. Something like that. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So and like let them be the ghosts haunting a situation, right? As they're trying to push their will into the material plane. That might be an interesting random encounter or even a set piece if you wanted to play with that. But jumping into the partnered content on D&D Beyond, I didn't find anything that was going to be specifically helpful to just lift out of one of the books and place in your campaign. But I did find some stuff that might be a little inspirational. So do you fuck with the partnered content very often, or you just ignore it? Some people love it, some people don't have time for
it. It depends on what it is. I think if it fits kind of the theme or the vibe that I'm looking into or looking for, then absolutely I have a tendency to want to consume as much of other people's thoughts and ideas as I can to give me inspiration to run down. So I have some of the partner content.
Let me tell you the stuff that like jumped out to me that might be inspirational, at least. The big one, the most obvious one, is the Book of Ebon Tides. It's a source book from Kobold Press, and it's about a shadow realm. It has a lot of rules and details about its own setting, and while it includes some neat entries like shadow fae, an intelligent playable species based on ghouls, there's shadow goblins and a stat block for a memory thief. There's a wandering pond and a shadow spider swarm. A lot of it would be best suited in an actual plane of real shadow. But I would like to think of this as kind of like fun details that you can shift into the ethereal plane. Or honestly, if I was going to play with this for any amount of time, then I might have this be a little pocket in the ethereal plane, like Ravenloft is a small pocket in the Shadowfell. That's just homebrew for me. I like it. It's very shadow themed, so it feels like it's going to be Shadowfell, but you're also getting like playable anthropomorphic bears and stuff as well. So it feels a little bit better than Shadowfell and might be like a little pocket area. But there's some really, really cool creatures in there. that you might want to take a look at if you have it. There are other strange haunted settings that might have locations, details, monsters, magic items that might inspire you. Grim Hollow is very dark fantasy and includes things like necropolis, spells like Consume Mind and Heart Seeker, and they've got a bunch of terrifying monsters. Dungeons of Drakkenheim is one of my favorites. It's a flavorful setting that feels like it's on the raggedy edge of the civilization and apocalypse as a world is like falling apart in like a deep gloom. The Monsters of Drakkenheim publication there, which is I think is relatively new, holds monsters like the Dark Confessor, Ratlings, which are, if you take away the lycanthropy from were-rats, you'd have ratlings, the Eldritch Crawler, Ghoul Priests, and a whole group called the Void Pirates with different stat blocks for them, which could be cool in an ethereal plane. The Crooked Moon books are like folk horror that might be a little weird pocket of the ethereal plane, full of like crows and crow creatures, vermin, hospital-themed horrors, and warped plants. The Ruins of Symbaroum as a setting handbook that's dark and nasty setting where inspirations for like dark fantasy might creep into long lost areas of the deep ethereal, but for the most part I think like it's its own fairly cohesive and separate setting. So that one, unless you already have it, I probably wouldn't go buy it. I think it's pretty expensive too, if I remember correctly. And if you want something a little lighter and cozier to put in the dreamlike state, Obojima Tales from the Tall Grass is a lazy anime style setting of a like pastoral island that it's got a real like cozy feel. It's meant to make your players feel good, but it's tied to like almost a Japanese inspired spirit realm in ways that no one in the setting really understands. But it's very Spirited Away. Like it's kind of got that kind of feel to it a lot as well. Most of this is just going to be for inspirations, for vibes and ideas, maybe the odd monster stat block, or little islands of sanity that are lost in the ethereal plane, like in the deep ethereal, right? So there might be something, if you already have any of those books, that's where I'd look. If you don't have them, well, the Book of Ebb and Tides is fairly on brand, and I think that there's some cool monsters and ideas in Grim Hollow and Dungeons of Drakkenheim. Those would be the first places I'd look, but that's going to be budget dependent, and you kind of got to know like what you're in for when you buy those books, right? Did any of that jump out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I know I listened to the episodes you had on the
yeah, I do the Legend Lore Online
Dungeons
episodes on the Patreon.
Yeah, and the Grim Hollow stuff. So I think that there's probably good stuff to be had in there. The Book of Ebb and Tide sounds good. I have access to a couple of these.
Yeah, I'd poke around in there just to maybe like flesh out random encounters or specific details, right?
I mean, I like I like getting as many takes on monsters as I can too. So anytime that somebody comes out with a book of monster stat blocks, I like to grab it because it gives me more to sift through and borrow.
There are never enough bestiaries. I'm telling you, give me all the monsters.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it. Give me interesting takes on abilities and designs for monsters. Let me compile weird chimeras.
Yeah, and I mean, between the Monsters of the Multiverse, which has kind of like the higher tiered CR stuff, it's an actual D&D product, but also the Tome of Beasts, which is available. Yeah. And then like I said, Grim Hollow, Dungeons of Drakkenheim, you're going to be able to find the neat stuff that you want in the monster stat blocks to be able to really like beef it up. A lot of the things that I like to do when I'm trying to get weird with shit is I'll go to Theros or Ravnica, and I'm not looking for the monster, I'm looking for the abilities. Like what are the set piece abilities they have, and can I port that over onto my reflavored or reskinned or the homebrew creature, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I like to do. That's what I like to do too, or to find an ability and tweak it just a little bit to flavor it the way that I want it flavored for the setting that I'm running in. But to give me an idea, like the mechanical idea of how something could work in an interesting way.
So let's actually jump into a handful of these encounters. I set aside the time to build 4 of them, although we've gone way longer than I initially anticipated, as is tradition. But let's start working at these. And I want to kind of hit it from the if we're going to sit down and do these, I'm not just saying like, hey, let's do some random encounters. I'm like, let's do set piece encounters, right? Let's do interesting things that will be memorable for the players, right? So I want to do dynamic encounters. And that's going to be a phrase that anyone that has listened to our campaign builder series will be very familiar with. And I think we spent, 70 episodes or more on just dynamic encounters in different scenarios. And this is a good opportunity, I think, as well, to bring in these ideas. So once again, really briefly, as a refresher, a dynamic encounter, the way that we describe it, is when you go from one of the pillars to another, or you do a very robust and memorable encounter that is kind of outside the basic tiers that we're dealing with. So what I'm talking about is the combat pillar, the exploration pillar, and the social pillar. So we're talking combat, exploration, and role-playing, essentially. These are the three aspects of Dungeons and Dragons. Obviously, most of the mechanics are built around combat, and most of the fun memories and the fucking around that players like to do are based around role-playing. So they tend to be the ones that get focused on, exploration less so. But the idea is that you're going to have an encounter that then gets interrupted by another kind of encounter. So the dynamic encounters that we have here would be combat that gets interrupted by another combat, a combat that turns into an exploration, like if you're in the middle of fighting and then that person runs and hides, a combat to role playing, like when you stop and just start talking it out instead of fighting it out. And then, of course, all of the other extrapolations, which are exploration to combat, exploration to exploration, exploration to role-playing, and then the three for role-playing as well, where it would go to combat, exploration, or role-playing. But then we also have three other categories that we would talk about on the campaign builder, which would be stuff to do in downtime, which can be memorable for its own reasons and might not be any of those. Skill challenges or a chase, right? Because they have their own mechanics and they're fun to deal with, and they can let you do great big like massive set pieces that would normally be dangerous, like a volcano exploding while you're inside of it could be a skill challenge. If you're going round by round of mechanics, you might kill your players, but a skill challenge can be a fun way for them to feel heroic in a massive set piece. And the last one is party politics, where you give them just some sort of dilemma and you let them fight it out amongst themselves, right? And that can eat up, hopefully, a half hour or more as they make a little council around the table and try to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And for those that are saying, what about puzzles and riddles? I include that in exploration. So, but I mean, they're also viable options. So when we're looking at a combat encounter, did you want to start in combat or did you want to end in combat? Like, what's a kind of a dynamic encounter that you would like to hit them with that includes combat somehow?
I think exploration to combat is one that we'll definitely get here since they're trying to navigate the space.
Certainly, yeah. Okay, that brings me to an interesting question that I wrote down here in my notes and then kind of passed by. Are you planning on having any waypoints in the ethereal plane? Like all of your souls are traveling from one place to another. Are there areas where people that are not like lost souls, but like the native denizens or whatever have set up, oh hey, this is a resting place. Like we would have little roadside taverns in the material plane, or small little villages that have cropped up near a river that people tend to stop at. Is there anything like that in the ethereal plane, or is it all just kind of this empty road?
I think there definitely is stuff like that from maybe a few of the denizens. I think it's primarily going to be souls that have been stuck there long enough that they have gained enough kind of sentience and power that they're able to take care of the area, or denizens of the other planes that have taken up either temporary or semi-permanent residence, right, as opposed to the denizens of the plane itself, which I think of as more kind of more feral.
Okay, so do we want to, for exploration, do you want to explore the mists? Do you want to get lured in by an action or an event? Or do you want to come to a waypoint and have to explore it?
Let's start with exploring a waypoint.
Sure. Do you have any idea what one of these waypoints might look like? Are we talking small cobblestone type village? Are we talking a single roadside inn? Are we talking a watering hole?
I think a small inn. This is probably gonna end up being the spookiest version of that, kind of emerging from the myth, like it would.
What about an inn? You're dealing with the ethereal plane, which is fucky for space and time. What about an inn that looks like a standard, like 3-story inn tavern on the bottom level, right? And I don't know, like a root cellar maybe, and then a couple of levels of like actual like rooms for people to rent, but the staircase keeps going and there's actually like an infinite number of levels with an infinite number of rooms.
I like that.
And in order to get to your level, you would need to, as you get to the top of the third flight of stairs, there's going to be a golden step or something. Maybe it's the ethereal plane, maybe like a silver step, right? And when you step on it, you have to say the word and then go through the door at the top of the stairs, and it will take you to your level. So you don't have access to the other levels, but there's just an infinite number of them. And they will be on level like 836 or something, right? And maybe they've got to find someone that's gone missing, or they like somehow they have to learn another word to get to another floor, or you can get to some floors through other floors, and you can give them a little bit of a maze, a puzzle to solve here for the exploration encounter as they go through this inn. And every level can be slightly different. Some of them can have like creaky wooden floors and have a haunted feel. Some of them could be like really intricate but very empty and lonely, kind of like an overlook hotel from The Shining kind of vibe. Some of them could be just packed full. This level is just an ongoing gala all of the time. There's always like a ballroom dancing going on and a band in the corner that have been there forever, and they can go explore that. Like there could be all of these different levels, each one kind of weirder than the last, and you can understand how some souls just never leave. And then you have to find someone that has gone missing that'll lead to a combat encounter somehow. How does that sound?
Oh, I like that a lot. I think one of the things that they're going to need to do ultimately is find a guide, right? To be able to really get where they're looking to go. So I wonder if this is the way to identify that guide.
Oh man, the overworked freaking bellhop that can get them to the next. Like, I know all the words for all of the infinite. God, you could make them fucking weird too. Like, make them an auto gnome or something that you would just not expect, or a floating fucking octopus, right? Like, you could get as weird as you wanted with this creature, this guide. Who would know all of the details that they need to, but be relatively low level or low status or low power, to not be able to just do the adventure by themselves?
Yeah, and I like that. I like the auto gnome bellhop.
I found a use for Spelljammer. Check it out. So I think that's a lot of fun. How do we make it a combat?
Whoever they're looking for is being held by somebody else, right? That's
that feels very obvious to me. That's the direction to go in, and I'm sitting here going, so who are they looking for,
and why?
Yeah, you know what? It could be something. It could be something as simple as like let's get the idea of the guide again, right? But have them be a literal guide through some of the deep fog that's outside that is going to be able to get them to the next waypoint. And we know that they're in the inn, so you have to find the inn. And then when you get there, you look for them like, oh yeah, he's somewhere in the 800s on floor 23,962, but nobody knows the password to get there, and we haven't seen him in literally years. So that doesn't mean anything, but you got to go find them and find out why he hasn't come down. By the way, we've got fresh towels for him that he asked for 3.5 years ago. Can you take these to him as well, please? Right. And then you got to find the auto gnome. You got to find the person that's going to know the word to get there. Right. And they can explore the inn, and they can follow rumors about, well, so-and-so, I saw so-and-so go here when they weren't supposed to, or know the word to get there. Or have you talked to a staff member? Or like, oh, go into the kitchens, they might know. And just follow kind of the breadcrumbs till you get to the auto gnome who can get you to that level, right? But then why are they held hostage? Why is this person? Who are they? And why are they held hostage? Let me look at the monster list to see what we're looking at as far as like CR rating, right?
Yeah, because this is going to be likely smaller in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
Unless they've ostensibly taken over the floor of this hotel.
Sorry, I'm trying to read through a lot of stat blocks very quickly. CR13 gives us a Rakshasa. Are you interested in that?
Ooh, that's interesting.
Masters of manipulations, Rakshasas infiltrate communities to claim positions of power. While disguising their true natures, they kidnap victims and indulge their insatiable hunger for flesh. There you go. So kidnapping is on board. Maybe they're not necessarily kidnapping to eat them, but we've got a pretty decent, if I remember correctly, they punch a little bit harder than they seem. You're also going to get to do fun
I
stuff.
think they soften them in 5.5 a little bit, but in 5 it's that like literally no spells affect them that are lower than 6th level, right? They're
I
immune
think
to all effects.
they have that automatically succeeds on saving throws against spells and other magical effects, and the attack rolls of spells automatically miss it. Without the Rakshasa's permission, no spell can observe the Rakshasa remotely or detect its thoughts, creature type, or alignment. It just automatically succeeds on saving throws against spells and other magical effects, and attack rolls of spells automatically miss it, which means your spellcasters are going to be fucked in this.
Yeah. So I'd want to give them something else that they can not feel completely useless against.
Well, what about? All right, hold on. We have. So did they have disguise self and minor illusion? They've got invisibility. They've got plane shift to let them come in and out. They have, but they have major illusion. What if the autonome is the Rakshasa that is luring them up there?
Oh, I like that. They could be. Oh, you know what? So the region that's right next to the dragons on the world is controlled by fiends.
Oh, cool.
And one of their followers right now, one of the party's followers, is a tiefling pirate from that region. I wonder, a cool, a potentially cool way to integrate that. These guys could be looking for a way to get into their territory, to get at that pirate. If he owes them something, his soul, why not?
Yeah. Okay, so the Rakshasa. All right, what about this? The Rakshasa, yeah, made a deal with whoever the guide is going to be as well, made a deal with them as well. And the reason they're such a good guide is because they sold their soul to be able to, travel the ethereal plane for 100 years or something, right? 1,000 years, doesn't matter. And now, like, the contract is up, and they need to get him, and it's his soul is just like, eventually when the reveal happens, it's some sort of dungeon situation where the Rakshasa is just torturing the souls that it has already reaped. And the reason it's focused on your party is because it's also going to get the tiefling as well, because your time is up. You come to me now. Also, for your spellcasters, who are your spellcasters again? You have a sorcerer and a bard. Does the artificer cast spells, or are they kind of tanky?
Yeah, no, artificer cast spells.
Okay, I would have a bunch of weapons that have been discarded, heroic weapons that have been discarded by some of the other victims as the Rakshasas kidnap them. And it says here in the stat block that they're vulnerable to piercing damage from weapons wielded by creatures under the effect of a bless spell. So what if we made the weapons permanently blessed, that some other creature owned, and when they pick up these weapons, they'll be piercing, they'll be crossbows or pikes or whatever it is, right? Spears maybe, and they can use these instead, whatever they're proficient with. You give them a couple of those, they'd be able to pick these up to then they'll be doing additional damage because they're hitting the vulnerability of the Rakshasa, so they can do like weird melee attacks that they wouldn't normally do. You know what I mean?
I like that.
Because even though they're not going to be like, the sorcerer might not have high dex to be able to hit with a rapier. However, that extra 1d4 to the attack roll, because it's a blessed weapon, would be very useful, right? That's going to kind of even the playing field a bit.
At least make it viable if they're going to be able to hit something.
Yeah. And this also lets you use some of the low-level Rakshasas from, like, where are they from? I think Eberron. Did Theros have a couple? I don't remember. There are some low-level Rakshasas in some of the other books as well that are just, like, CR 5 or 7. Like, you can have a couple of minions in here, or you could just grab other humanoids and have them, or fiends. Just make them fiends and have them be minions as well, right?
Yeah, and then, as long as there are enough minions in here, then between that and the blessed weapons, the casters should have enough to do to not feel like they're just riding one out.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
All right, so that's exploration to combat. That is a pretty good set piece. That should eat up about half a session or more, depending on how quickly they can figure out who the Rakshasa is, right? And what's happened to the guide.
Well, I also know how much scenery they chew up when we're doing the social exploration stuff. That'll be a whole session.
All right, well, there you go. What's okay? So we've crossed off one that definitely includes combat. Let's do one that definitely includes exploration.
Okay.
That would be combat to exploration, exploration to exploration, exploration to role playing to exploration.
Let's do a role-playing exploration. Dig into that a little bit.
All right. So I guess the place that we have to start is who we're role playing with. What's the NPC? Let's look at our list of the 4 different groups that we have here: the temporary inhabitants from other planes, lost souls, native denizens, and of course other adventurers.
Let's find a group of other adventurers.
Do you have any idea who that might be?
Let me think for a second. Yeah, it could be.
Oh, I have an idea.
Let's hear it.
So we're dealing with a lot of souls in the afterlife that are passing through to the astral plane, right?
Yep.
Can you bring any of them back to the material plane? And what happens if you do?
It depends on how you do it. You could bring them back, just the souls themselves, and then you got yourself a ghost. You could bring them back and bind them to something, and you'd have yourself essentially a warforged. There's a small group of those that exist now.
What about putting them back in their body if you can preserve their body and like resurrect them?
Yep, that's also an option.
All right. What if the other adventurers are a party that are made up of a family that is led by a priest that are trying to find the soul before it moves on so they can get it back to the material plane and resurrect them?
I like that. Ooh, good idea.
So one of the things that I'm trying to do here is tie the themes of the ethereal plane to each one of these encounters, right? The first one is the idea of like infinite space and it being a little confusing to move through. And then we're getting that with the exploration there. And then the combat will be from like someone that is an interloper into the space that's preying on the souls that are their time is up. So we're tying everything to souls still. So this one is about the race against time to find a soul and bring it back from the mists. And would you have them physically be there, or would you have them be astral projecting their way in?
I think it's more interesting, or I guess we have more options if they're actually there, right?
Yeah, I think that's true as well. Although maybe the priest actually isn't, and he's astral projected his way in, as he's like, because he's in the temple with the body that is being maintained and his orders looking after them or whatever, right?
Oh,
so the priest is a little like, I almost said ethereal, but is a little like intangible and a little strange to deal with. And this one kind of writes itself because it might just be them saying, we're a little bit lost here. We know that we have to get to this waypoint, but we don't know how to do it. And the priest is there for resurrection. He's there for support, but he's astral projected the ethereal plane before, but he's not a master of it, right? So even him as their guide, he's lost. And the exploration is, let's get you guys to where you need to be before we can move on with our quest. And it can be a series of roles or maybe a skill challenge, or the role playing will be getting them to a waypoint and then setting them up with transportation or another group to get them to somewhere else, right? And so the idea would be kind of an escort mission. So this one's not so much role playing into exploration, but role playing while exploring. And then you can have all sorts of crazy characters in this family. Like you choose what species you want them to be, right? Because dwarves will be different than gnomes, will be different than Goliaths. And then you can have the cowardly one, the brave and kind of foolhardy one that always makes the wrong decision. You have the one that is falling in love with one of the player characters, right? Like you just whatever you want. Just a small family that are all very different personalities, but working towards one common goal, right?
Yeah, this is setting up for kind of a three-piece, right? You almost want to have to rescue the soul once you find it.
Even if you were to just, oh my God, that's him, and you tap him on the shoulder and he looks around kind of confused and goes, why are you here? Oh my God, did you die? No, we came for you. But my time has passed. And then your guys have to roll persuasion to help the family, right? Like whatever it is, the soul wants to move on, but they've got to convince it not to. That could be an interesting and maybe heart-wrenching as well if you can play it right. Especially depending on who the soul is. What if they're like 17-year-old that died young, and we need you to come back and be the heir. You died on the day before your wedding, and these two families, are depending on the success of the union. Like, you come up with any sort of reason why this person is important, or it could just be grandma misses you and she hasn't been the same since you died. You have to come back, right? Like, it could be heart-wrenching, or it could be political. Like, you can come up with any reason to bring them back. Oh, here's a question: what happens if a living creature dies in the ethereal plane?
I mean, that's a great question. I guess my initial instinct is they separate, but is that
in my head? If it's in one of the border ethereal places that has, sorry, I think my internet connection's sucking again.
Yeah.
All right. In my head, if it happens in the border ethereal, where there's another space that mirrors this somewhere on the material plane, then like you would watch them die, and then the soul like steps up out of the body like a cheesy like 90s fucking Halloween special, right? But then the body like starts to fade, and if you can get right up to it, you can see that it's melted and it's appeared in the material plane on that version of it, right? And now the ghost can't get back to it, like the soul can't get to it. But what happens if they die in the deep ethereal? Does their body end up in some random point in existence as it melts away?
You think it almost has to?
Yeah, and that right there can be a fucking crazy part of like people traveling through the deep ethereal know that like resurrection is nigh impossible, because you're not going to be able to find your body without like high powered magic. So it might be a better idea to just run. If something comes out of the mists, you don't stop to fight it, because you can't come back, right? But the border ethereal is, oh, you're here. If we can get to you in time, we can resurrect, we can revivify, we can whatever, right? If we can plane shift quickly enough, we know where we're going, we can do this, instead of just your body dissipates and it is somewhere in the cosmos.
Yeah, right.
So do you think, ready to move on to the next one, or do you want to keep fleshing out this group of adventurers?
No, I think that gives me enough with them that I can fill in the details around who that is almost live, right?
Yeah.
Based on how people interact with them. I feel like when I plan too much for NPCs, they get ignored. When I don't have too much drawn up, and I can respond to them, they get adored. So
my last comment to you would be for this before we move on is, it just occurred to me that what if one of the adventurers has a nefarious motive in secret, and when they find the spirit, the lost soul, here's your combat. He goes to kill the lost soul again, because if a lost soul dies in the ethereal plane, they're just gone, right?
Right.
And so now you've got to fight one of these party members that is like betraying the party, that gets in there and is going to make sure that this guy can never come back for whatever reason. Is a spy for one of the other factions or whatever. I don't know if you want to go that way, but I thought that might be a neat twist to it.
That definitely gives me an opportunity, depending on where some of these factions are when we get there.
Yeah.
They've stirred the pot a little bit in the last few sessions, so there very well could be a faction that's really good at spying.
Yeah.
That's opposed to them and their allies. So that could be a fun insert.
Now, for the third encounter, do you want to grab something that definitely has role playing in it?
Yeah, I think combat to role playing is a good one here, and it'll let us also lean into some of what the native denizens might look like, and we can save, or we can have the party anyway, save some souls that are being hunted by one of these things or some of these things.
What do the native denizens look like?
So in my kind of imagining that this is kind of where the Sorrow Sworn kind of fit in those. I kind of see them as vaguely reminiscent of things on the adjoining planes, almost like they have a concept of an idea of what those are, but they're all kind of twisted through the weird game of telephone that is looking through the planes, right? So they're, maybe they look like wolves kind of, but they're wrong. They don't have eyes. Maybe their mouth is like too big, like their whole head opens up. Maybe they're people, but the proportions are just wrong, right? Kind of like almost forgetting or not quite knowing what it is that they're supposed to look like.
Okay, what if we take the idea of the Sorrowsworn? We have the wretched, which are the little shitty ones, right? Lonely, lost, hungry, and angry. And any one of these, maybe not hungry so much, but lonely, lost, and angry, any one of them could be, could apply to wanting other souls, right? But we've got the Angry Sorrowsworn already is a CR13, and it's got two heads and like long, gangly arms with hooks on the end instead of hands, right? And like they're kind of like melted flesh grossness. Does that I think your guys are gonna. I have used Sorrowsworn in the past, and my team of not very tactical party members has kind of walked through them at level like 7. They handled it Sorrowsworn, and there are 6 of them, so and they didn't really have too much problem with it. So do we want to homebrew a Sorrowsworn?
Yeah, I think so. If for no other reason, then like, I think from a vibe standpoint, the Sorrowsworn are kind of the right idea, just because they're wrong, right? Right, and they're wrong in the right way.
Yeah. What's the single emotion, like the single negative emotion that you would have to describe the denizen that you're going to use for this?
I think probably hungry.
Do you just want to use the hungry stat block? We can beef it up.
Yeah.
So
let's absolutely do that.
There's CR11 or shit. Just have 2 of them. That'll be a really tough encounter. Or have one with a bunch of the wretched following behind it, right?
Yeah. I'll be out with CR11. Let's see, what is it? When I do it, it'll be 240, 300, like 300 HP ish for each of these guys. AC 17. I give them better vision in the party. They're still largely close up, right? So don't want to give them too much range because of the limitation on the party's visibility, but we do want them to be kind of emerging from the dark, so maybe a little faster. And 11, I think they could take 2 of these guys and some of the wretched, because those are really low, right?
Yeah, they're super low. They're CR 1/4. Hold on a sec. Look at the Lost.
Yeah, these are little also ran guys. So yeah, for sure, if I could send 2 of the hungry, with just a bit of beef, and then just a bunch of these guys to chase away.
I'm looking at the Lost Sorrowsworn as well, because what you could do is have the Lost Sorrowsworn come out being weird as shit like it is, but instead of attacking, because it speaks common and it has an intelligence of 6, so it's smarter than a hill giant, it could come out and just say like, you look lost, I know the way, come with me, I know the way, and just be really creepy and lead them towards 2 of the hungry.
Yeah.
And if anyone tries to run, then they can get into that, like, it's got Embrace, which recharges on a 4 to 6. So it'll grapple someone, and that person is frightened, and they'll take some psychic damage, maybe knock unconscious if it's non-lethal, and then drag it away into the mist, and you've got to follow the Lost. Come with me. I'll lead you where you need to go. Maybe I increase its speed to 35 or 40 just to make people dash and not be able to catch up with it. I mean, the fucking monk will, but...
You did. Yes, the fucking monk will. No doubt about it. They are rockets.
Yeah, okay.
But if the monk gets too far ahead, that also gives us an opportunity to mess with the fact that one of the party members is ostensibly alone.
Yeah, that's splitting it for sure. So yeah, do we do that? Do we have the party stumble upon a Lost Sorrowsworn that is already, let's say has got all of those weird little arms wrapped around an unconscious NPC and is walking backwards through the fog, leading everyone else, going, I know the way, come with me, let's go this way, towards 2 of the hungry, and then have the party interrupt this shit with a fight and then try to figure out what's going on with these lost explorers, only to find that maybe they were lost explorers that are starving to death, and that's why it attracted the lost and the hungry.
Ooh, I like that.
They've been lost in the mists for too long. That's going to make them, if they're starving too, you're going to be able to give them 4 levels of exhaustion. They'll be useless in a fight, right?
Yes, and they're like barely staying on their feet.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll have them afterward. We can figure out what they're doing after that encounter.
Yeah, and you might have to do a whole bunch of things like intimidation or persuasion to get them to pull them out of their deep sorrow. right? And motivate them. This is where I feel like the bard might shine, which is phenomenal because you said they're not really, a big combatant.
Right.
So if they're just doing support stuff, at the moment it's over, the bard might be able to step forward and get the spotlight. The other thing too, which I might point out, is what species is your sorcerer?
Is an air genasi.
Maybe you make these guys air genasi as well.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, just to tie them in, to be like, it's so nice to see one of our own here. We were losing hope because you said the sorcerer's not really heavy on the role playing, so this might draw them in.
I think it will. I think it will.
Also,
air genasi are rare, so they're almost certainly related in some way. So I like that. I like that name.
Also, it might be really cool because you'll have a handful of air genasi now, and they all have like a ability to have, I think it's cast gust a certain number of times a day or something. They should be able to manipulate the fog and the mist.
Ooh, that's a good point.
And maybe the reason that they're lost is not because they're lost in the fog, but they're trying to find a specific curtain or door, staircase, whatever it is, right? And they just can't find the right one. They can move the mist, but it doesn't help them when they don't know where they're going. They've lost their heading, right? So let's just get them back to a waypoint to reorient themselves.
I mean, I like that. 35% chance that they end up adopting them anyway, but
yeah. All right. So if we're done the third one, what's the fourth encounter? It can be any one that you want to choose. Do you want to dig into some of the other weird ones, like a skill challenge, chase, party politics, downtime? Or do you want to stick with another one of these, one kind of pillar into another?
Good question. Trying to think of if there's a fun way to do a skill challenge. I think the party politics are going to be the space in between. They're pretty good at playing off each other. So I don't need to spend too much time. They'll take that time. Sure. I don't have to prompt them too much.
So why don't you think about a part of the border ethereal that mimics another space that will be difficult to traverse if you don't have, because, all right, follow me on this one. Let's say that you are dealing with, like, you enter a city, but in the border ethereal. So the city is essentially abandoned. It's populated like crazy on the other side, but on this side, it's an empty town, right? Now we have to come up with some way to make it so that because it's empty, it's difficult to get through it. And they'll have to do some sort of like skills to get through whatever this place in the border ethereal is.
I like that. So
we've used guides a couple of times. So I'm just trying to think what else we can do.
So one of the places that they're probably going to end up going, or the place that they're probably going to end up going here, is essentially the spot on the material plane that will let them traverse directly to either the Feywild analog or the Shadowfell. They can't access it directly right now because it's closed. The only way they can get into it is to navigate there and access it through the portal on the ethereal, or dig through a mountain. But I don't know how they would do that. So getting access to that through the ethereal without anybody to show them, nobody alive or around now has that knowledge.
How are they going to learn it?
So there could be hints. You could build hints. It is the original forge of the Dragon of the Forge, right? That they're going to go to. So there's going to be some documentation. There's going to be some hints about it. Might be able to have that.
What if? Okay.
One of the NPCs.
Sorry. Go ahead. One of the NPCs.
One of the NPCs that they have in their tower is a devotee of that dragon.
You said Dragon of the Forge. And I'm thinking, what if there is a passage that they have taken? Okay, have they been to a forge before, like from the Dragon of the Forge? Like, are they familiar with it?
They haven't been to that forge, but they've been to forges of his followers, right?
What about making a quest point that they've got to get items or weapons or something to help them on their quest? You can't go forward till you get this whatever MacGuffin that's available at this specific forge in the ethereal plane. It's been hidden there, and it is behind some sort of barrier, like not just like a safe, but like a vault door, right? That requires a bunch of different keys. When they get there, they'll find a vault door with a bunch of like keyholes or whatever that are required, but there's no keys made. But they're in a forge, and they can see the keys on the material plane, and they will have to replicate them here by activating the forge.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. That's a cool idea.
And they'll have to make, the brass one for the brass lock, the iron one for the iron lock, the copper one for the copper lock, right? Like whatever it is, maybe one for each kind of metallic dragon. And there will be texts as well that they can read off of to understand some of it. So you can have like, I think the artificer will probably fucking shine on this, right?
Yeah.
But the others should have the opportunity to, read a text and maybe use a history check to be able to put context clues together to say, oh, this is the kind of like mold that you will need to use for this, right? Or they can go exploring, like part of the skill challenge could be perception or investigation checks, where they've got to just explore the area, looking for keys in the material plane to find out which shape is which, right? And, which one is the bronze key, which one is the brass key. That might be difficult to tell, so you have to roll a perception check, right? So you can kind of lead them on with a number of different kinds of checks that they can do, but you can bring in like tool proficiencies. It might be athletics checks. If they have to be imbued with magic, it could be an arcana check, right? Like there are a lot of different opportunities that you could have here, especially if you put someone in the forge on the other side that has like true seeing, that'll be able to see them, that they're going to have to sneak around to like use stealth and sleight of hand, or I guess not sleight of hand, but stealth, to be able to, spy appropriately on where the keys are and what they're doing. If the forge is like separated into, oh my God, like 6 different wings, one is for brass, one is for iron, one is for, sorry, not iron, but like the 5 different metallic dragons, right? So gold, silver, brass, copper, bronze. And then the 6th one is this vault. And in the center of it is a forge. When you forge different parts, I don't know. I'm kind of spitballing here. What do you think? Am I dead in the right direction?
Yes, for sure. I am. I am putting things together as we speak. So I also grabbed a comment that you made earlier about having an opportunity for them to kind of see something that's going on the other side and the material plane.
Yeah.
And this might be an opportunity to bump that. If this forge is it's primarily a forge of the dragon that they serve, this might be an opportunity for one of their foes to attempt to interfere with their plans on the material side. So
that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, having them have to do their best to kind of push their influence into the material while they're trying to figure this out, all on a timer to get it done. I think is a cool idea to give us both the kind of the sense of urgency around it and a fun little puzzle to solve. Yeah,
and so you'll have, you have to make the 5 dragon keys, and then then you get the MacGuffin, whatever's behind the vault door. And when the creature in the material plane, I would give them true seeing, let them see the players fucking about, and like the villain can taunt them and interact and say things, and they'll be able to hear, but they can't respond, shit like that. And then maybe when they get the MacGuffin, the creature enraged plane shifts in for your combat.
Like that. Oh, that's a good one.
All right, so that's 4. This recording has gone on a couple hours. It'll be a little bit shorter than that when we post it. But before we wrap up, I want to ask, we came up with 4 of these today. We did exploration to combat, which was the inn. We did the role-playing to exploration, which was the people trying to find their dead relative and bring them home. There was the combat to role playing, which was the Sorrow Sworn, and then there's this skill challenge, which is these draconic keys. Which of the 4 of them is your favorite, and why?
Honestly, right now I think it's the Forge, just because there are so many little opportunities to build extra layers into it that I'm excited for it now. But I think all of them are going to be fun to run and to watch the players scramble through.
How many sessions do you figure they're going to stay in the Ethereal Plane?
It wouldn't surprise me if we ended up being in the Ethereal for 3 to 5 sessions, depending on how quickly they push through some of the encounters that we have for them. Especially since there's so much social aspect to each of the different layers, or each of the different encounters rather that we've we've built here.
Yeah.
And my party has a tendency to lean into that quite a bit.
It's interesting because we've come up with 4 really great encounters, in my opinion, great encounters. However, we've not really touched on random encounters at all, and we have not served the overall plot or story, right? These are what I consider not so random encounters. These are steps along the way that are really cool and flavorful and interesting, but they have not served your overall plot. These are just things that you're doing on the way to, getting through the ethereal plane, like exploring the vibes and the themes and things that are here, which I like a lot. That's fantastic. My party would spend, and we play like 6-hour sessions, right? My party would spend probably a session a piece on each one of these. Actually, knowing my party, they'd probably do 2 full sessions at that inn, the Infinite Inn. They would fuck around for a long time. But I would
that's the one I have a lot of question marks about, yeah.
Yeah, I would probably have 10 sessions, maybe more, as they hit these handful of set pieces, and then the actual like plot point at the end with a bunch of futzing around in the middle, right? So I would probably be able to get at least 1, maybe 2 levels out of this if I wanted to drag it out a bunch. Especially if they're going to be wandering around in the mists for a while, trying to go from one place to another, exploring what's going on through like their ability to see the material plane, but not being able to be seen. Like there are a lot of really cool opportunities in here. You could really drag this out for a while if you wanted, I think.
Oh yeah, and I think depending on how much they bite on kind of the activities, I think we definitely expect to, right? At the minimum, I expect them to be in here for a level. The maximum, it really depends on how much they use that going forward. I don't put too many bounds on how they solve their problems. So I want to introduce this as a concept. I want them to get an opportunity to like really experience what's in here, understand it, and then have a chance to use or interact with this space going forward. They'll have an entry point. So
I also want to just kind of drop in your ear that if they're going to forge like 5 different dragon keys in a draconic forge, they should be able to use these keys to like, when they're back in the material plane and future levels and future adventures, they should be able to be like, look at these keys. We have these 5 keys that we have made themselves. And it's not so much like what they unlock, but we forged these in a dragon forge should go a long way to convincing certain NPCs of things, right? Or like giving them a significant amount of status. That should be a big win. Because how many mortals successfully forge at a dragon forge?
Yeah.
So anyway, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, I don't think so. I'm really looking forward to getting to do that. Add this to the pile of stuff that's sitting in the wings that I'm really excited to bring to the table.
Does your co-DM listen to these episodes?
I send them to him once they come out or once I have them. I know he's listened to the ones that we did on the planes and bits of the ones that we did on the mass combat.
Cool. Yeah, I'm so curious to see, like, I'm hoping that he's listening and is also jotting down notes to be like, you guys didn't talk about this, and this is a great idea too. And like it spirals out to more shit. So
I mean, typically, yeah, we get ourselves into a bit of a fervor when we're building this stuff. We have to check to make sure that we don't get too self-indulgent.
Fair enough. Is there anyone or any social media, any projects, anything you'd like to mention before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. For the most part, I'm really just on the Discord. You can find me there. I don't do much other social media anymore.
Yeah, that's fair and smart. So anyway, I think that's all for our discussion on ethereal planar encounters. Thank you, Gerald, for choosing this topic. This was a lot of fun, and for workshopping your homebrew and supporting the Patreon. And if you, the listener, would like to become a Platinum Greatwyrm tier patron and record an episode of your choice with me or any of the other hosts, please head over to the It's a Mimic Patreon, where you can explore the options there for a ton of bonus content, access to our Discord channel, or our Discord server, rather, and more. There's lots of stuff going on there. So, and thank you, of course, listeners, for listening to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, where you never know what you're going to get. That's all for this Platinum Greatwyrm episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. please take a second to engage with a like, follow, subscribe, comment, or review to help push our engagement. Thanks for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get. If you'd like to support us, we have a store with some merch and a donate button on our website, itsamimic.com. You can also head to itsamimic.com to find a comprehensive episode guide and more information about the show. We do have a Patreon, which not only offers access to our exclusive Discord server, but also hosts over 100 episodes, including a variety of bonus episodes covering topics like 5th edition book reviews and the campaign builder, spells and gods, fae, homebrew inspiration, and even the Blood War. If you'd like to submit any mailbag questions, please reach out to us through any of the social media links in the show notes of this episode, or send us an email at info@itsamimic.com. This has been an episode of It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.